It's so interesting, this whole dilemma of being a one-person shop fundraiser. And in my career, that's how I started. I was doing everything, including sweeping the floor at night, I think, before I went home. So first of all, there are some great aspects to the job of being the sole practitioner inside development, because you have a lot of freedom. You learn a lot because you have to, because you're doing so many different things all at once. Of course, your work isn't compartmentalized, where you know that 6 or 7 people around you, or 20 or 30 people, are doing other things that you don't have to do. You have to do something of everything. So that's the fun part of it, and the challenge of just trying to get it all done is really fun. And the other aspect, that people tend to leave you alone. Because your job is so all-consuming, they don't want to distract you for even 1 minute, because they know if they do, you're not raising money. And so there are many aspects which are attractive to fundraisers, and some fundraisers spend their entire careers in one-person shop jobs. They do move from one job to the next, not that often, by the way, but they tend to like that environment. But there's a downside. The obvious downside is that because fundraising is a product of good time invested, one person cannot raise as much money as 2 or 3. And so if you resist staff expansion because you like working alone, then you're hurting your organization to a certain point. But often one-person shop fundraisers are working in an environment where the not-for-profit may be new into fundraising, may be very grassroots, and it took all the resources they had just to hire and pay this one individual to raise money. And the idea of soon expanding the staff it may be desirable, but it's unrealistic. So in that regard, there are some things that one-person shop fundraisers can do to manage their time more effectively. Now, they do report to a CEO. CEO is their boss. The CEO should be providing really great guidance and mentoring and encouragement, but having a chief executive officer for a boss who may not be an experienced fundraiser, and is likely not an experienced fundraiser, may not even like fundraising, may be kind of, oh, it's okay if you're out there raising the money, but just don't tell me about it kind of thing. That you're not going to get the professional support you would get if you were inside a larger institution where the boss is the chief development fundraiser, who's a highly skilled and knowledgeable in the area. And so you have to understand that going in. You may get support, but you're not going to get that depth of knowledge. So, a sole practitioner is 3 people in one. They are the frontline fundraiser who's carrying out the work. They're the ones scurrying around before, during, and after the fundraising event, doing absolutely everything connected with it. So you're on the front line. The second is you're the manager, because most of the time you're managing yourself. And so as the frontliner, you're reporting to yourself, managing. And the third thing you are is the innovator and the strategist, the person who comes up with a new idea, the person beyond management who is looking at where can we take fundraising next. Should I be spending less of my time in fundraising events or in writing direct mail appeal letters, and more time in building relationships with a small number of donors? Oh, and by the way, the answer is yes to that question, almost invariably. But as one person playing the role of 3, you have to almost operate with a split personality, so that you are deliberately, when you're on the front lines doing the work, remember to report to yourself at the end of the work and say, okay, now as the manager, how do I look at how things turned out here? What would I have done differently? How can I, the next time this event rolls around, what do I need to do to make it more successful? So you operate as the assessor and the manager 1 minute, and then you're the innovator the next, and finally you're delivering on the front lines. For people who want to know more about this, there's a great old book out there which is very small called the E-Myth, letter E dash myth. E doesn't stand for email, it stands for entrepreneur. And it's by Michael Gerber, and it's been around forever. And it talks about people who are running their own sole practitioner businesses. And in essence says the same thing, that you are multiple people embodied in one human being, and that you have to behave in these different ways in order to do your job well. You can't just stick with one aspect of the job and expect to succeed. It's worth having a read, and you can read it in a day. It's very short, but it's got some really good advice in it.